I thank the Speaker. I thank my friend from Wisconsin, frequently comes down to the floor and engages and uses the special orders, as we call them, and it's great to see him down here. I often state I wish we would have more engaged debate on the floor of the House, actual debate, not just the sort of kind of fake debate where we go back and forth with an hour equally divided over a bill that we've pretty much predetermined will be passed on a partisan basis, but actually pick an issue and engage in thoughtful debate, back and forth about a topic, and would encourage any of my colleagues who are willing to do so on, frankly, either side of the aisle, where we have reasonable disagreements, that we could engage and try to deal with. The fact is, for too long in this country, in the House of Representatives, we've been dealing with a uni-party. We've been dealing with essentially not a lot of difference in terms of the total output of what this town does. We have strong disagreement here on the floor. We pass bills and we get them passed that nobody on that side of the aisle is going to vote for, and vice versa, knowing they're going to go to the Senate and die, or knowing they're going to get to the White House and not be signed, or knowing they're not going to have 60 votes in the Senate. And then when push comes to shove on the things that matter, when we come to a spending bill, it's all the same. It ends up being effectively the same. It's the only explanation for being $32 trillion in debt. And now, by virtue of the bipartisan effort of this body, the bipartisan effort of the Senate, the signature of the President, we now know we will be roughly $36 trillion in debt in January of 2025. We know this, and we did it. We embraced it. But we didn't materially change the trajectory. Yeah, we dented it a tiny fraction. We had a spending freeze for 2 years that's a part of a deal that isn't even yet consummated because we haven't done the appropriations process. And we patted ourselves on the back, or some of us did, for, we had to get this done because we might default. Every time we talk about this effort that we must raise the debt ceiling, or we're going to get to a place where we're going to default on the debt. The fact is, that's just simply not true. We were never going to default on the debt. The President of the United States was never going to choose, in terms of the prioritization of payments, to end up in the place where we're not going to make the payments on the interest on the bonds. That's just a fact. But we play this game. And when we say that to raise the debt ceiling and increase the borrowing level, we say, wait, maybe we should get some changes for that. And then we get up to the date, and what happens? People say you're going to default. And all of Wall Street calls all the folks. And they say, well, you're going to do that, aren't you? And everybody hops, both sides of the aisle. And so here we sit, yet again, going from $32 trillion to now predictably $36 trillion in January of 2025. As sure as the sun coming up, the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the President just agreed to mortgage your children's future again. Because that's what we do. That's what the House of Representatives does. And the point here is, as I said, we were never going to default on our debt. But what we are going to do, with almost the same amount of certainty as what I just described, is default on the American dream. That's where we're headed, is a full-scale, unequivocal default on the American dream. All led by the people who are supposed to be representing the American people in this great republic, barreling us right down the path, if we're not there already, on default on the American dream. The hardworking American family right now, today, sitting out there in this country, unable to afford groceries, unable to afford gas, unable to afford housing, unable to afford health care. I talk to staffers in this building in their 20s, and they look at me and they go, how am I ever going to afford to buy a house? And they genuinely mean it. They don't know. The hardworking plumber in the district I represent in Central Texas never took out a student loan, but is now being forced to pay for his neighbor's master's degree. Or the veteran paying for some liberal arts major to get the same student loan benefits he earned by risking his life for America. The nurse who wants to save lives without a federal bureaucrat telling her she has to take a needle in her arm to keep her job. The blue-collar workers watching their way of life sacrificed to the climate cult and billions of tax corporate crony subsidies in the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, enriching elite wealthy investors, true, and corporations, true, all while empowering the Chinese Communist Party and weakening our own grid and undermining our national security, all true. The rancher right now in Texas putting diesel in his truck, but forced to subsidize a tech worker making 6 figures to buy a Tesla hundreds of miles away. True. This body just encouraged it. Minority and poor taxpayers trying to make ends meet that an expanded IRS audit 3 to 5 times more than other Americans. The fact is, we are on the verge of defaulting on the American dream. And it's not enough to play politics and just pass something and then try to point the finger at the other party about, well, we just got this and it's better. Because that ain't working. It's simply not working. We had a rather raucous meeting in our Republican conference this morning. I make it a practice not to talk about what we do in private meetings. Some of my colleagues do not adhere to that same standard or rule. Tends to leak like a sieve. So a lot of the conversations we had in that private meeting are not fully private now. So to my colleagues, both sides of the aisle, but in particular my colleagues on this side of the aisle, my Republican colleagues, let me be very clear. I will be happy to engage personally anytime, anywhere on any of these issues. We can have disagreements and we can reasonably disagree. But I'm going to say emphatically, right here in front of God, in front of all the people I represent in this hallowed chamber, I don't give a rat's rear end what you think compared to what my constituents think. I don't. I don't. My job is to care what my constituents think. My job is to care about what people on the airplane or down the street who pull me aside every day and thank me and thank a few of my colleagues for daring to stand up against the uni-party and an institution that is trampling their way of life. I will stand with them. I will stand with the American people sick of having the American dream pulled out from under them. I will stand with them. I will be happy to work with my colleagues. I love and respect many of my colleagues. But I do not answer to my colleagues. I answer to the people I represent, and I'm going to darn well stand up and defend them. I'm going to fight to stop spending money we don't have. I'm going to fight to secure the border of the United States. I'm going to fight for all of the people I just described who are losing their ability to afford a home, afford groceries, to be able to carry out their livelihood, their job without being forced to take a needle. I'm going to fight for the guy trying to put diesel in his truck and not have to subsidize a Tesla. I'm going to fight for people to have a stable grid. I'm going to fight for the national security of this country. I'm going to fight to stop China from encroaching on this country. And I'm not going to give lip service for ads to go win political campaigns when you did nothing. I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to try to sell the American people on something that didn't occur. But that's what we do in this body all the time. And it's time that stops. We have a duty, yes, a bipartisan duty. If any one of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle would actually like to join the party of standing up for the American people and standing up in defense of this country, instead of a radical leftist ideology that results in a pride flag being hung at the same level as the United States flag on the front of the White House. People topless, parading around the front of the White House. The White House, the people's house for their president. Have we no respect? Does the flag of the United States mean nothing? It's the flag of the United States. Men and women have died for that flag, and they put that flag up to the side, flanking a pride flag on the front of the United States president's house. It's despicable. And we do that right here on the eve of Flag Day. Tomorrow is Flag Day. The flag of the United States stands for something so much bigger than any of these people running around pretending like they're standing up for, oh, we can't have established religion, we're for the separation of state. Yet their religion is represented by that pride flag on the front of the White House. It's a religion, just like the cult of climate fetishism is a religion. Every bit as much as any religion. How many lives have been lost with that flag on a patch on the arm of one of our men and women who have fought for this country? And that's what they do? I'm at a loss for words. I really am. I'm going to read one thing here, and then I'm going to yield to my friend from Pennsylvania. But it's going to take me a couple of minutes. One of my favorite songs is The Ragged Old Flag by Johnny Cash. It goes like this, and I will not do this nearly as cool as Johnny Cash does. I walked through a county courthouse square. On a park bench, an old man was sitting there. I said, "Your old courthouse is kind of run down." He said, "Nah, I'll do it for our little town." I said, "Your flagpole has leaned a little bit, and that's a ragged old flag you got hanging on it." He said, "Have a seat," and I sat down. "Is this the first time you've been to our little town?" I said, "I think it is," he said. "I don't like to brag, but we're kind of proud of that ragged old flag. You see, we got a little hole in that flag there when Washington took it across the Delaware, and it got powder burned the night Francis Scott Key sat watching it writing, 'Oh, say can you see?' And it got a bad rip in New Orleans with Packingham and Jackson tugging at its seams. And it almost fell at the Alamo beside the Texas flag, but she waved on through. She got cut with a sword at Chancellorsville, and she got cut again at Shiloh Hill. There was Robert E. Lee, Beauregard, and Bragg, and the south wind blew hard on that ragged old flag. On Flanders Field in World War I, she got a big hole from a Bertha gun. She turned blood red in World War II. She hung limp and low by the time it was through. She was in Korea and Vietnam. She went there. She was sent by her Uncle Sam. She waved from her ships upon the briny foam, and now they've about quit waving her back here at home. In her own good land, she's been abused. She's been burned, dishonored, denied, and refused. And the government for which she stands is scandalized throughout the land. And she's getting threadbare and wearing thin. But she's in good shape for the shape she's in, because she's been through the fire before. And I believe she can take a whole lot more. So we raise her up every morning, take her down every night. We don't let her touch the ground, and we fold her upright. On second thought, I do like to brag, because I'm mighty proud of that ragged old flag. On tomorrow and Flag Day, I hope we will honor the American flag. And I know that my friend from Pennsylvania is proud to be a member of Congress, but certainly I would think more proud to have worn the uniform of the United States military and devote his life in service to his country, and I would yield to my friend from Pennsylvania.
Well, I thank my friend, the gentleman from Texas, and I thank him for bringing up this subject. And look, each one of us feels maybe differently, but I don't know whether people know this or not, but there's actually a United States flag code. There's a decorum that we follow, that we're supposed to follow when displaying the flag, how you wear it, if you wear it. The flag is not supposed to be festooned. The flag is not clothing. And the flag, the standard of America, the standard of freedom, the standard of liberty recognized around the globe, is second to no other flag at all. And to have it fly flanking the pride flag on the White House, you said you're at a loss for words. I too am. I think to myself, well, it was just this morning. I communicate home every day. I talk to my wife and I let her know I love her, and we get on with our day, and then we reconnect in the evening. But this morning, I reminded my children, not thinking about what was going to happen at the White House, having no clue, but I reminded my children, tomorrow is Flag Day. Make sure you get up early, get the flag, and fly the flag in the front of our house, because it's important that America knows that their representative, my community knows that their representative respects what our country's about and its standard, and its standard. And it is a new low every single day. My friend from Texas has talked about it as appropriately and as particularly as anybody can. The destruction of this country, evidenced so many different ways. And every day you wake up, you turn on the TV, you open a newspaper, you listen to the radio, you talk to somebody, and you say to yourself, I can't believe this is happening in America. And every day you think we have reached the apex of the nadir, the lowest of the lows. And every day the left takes us to a new place of a new low, of a new disrespect, of a new destruction of the country that we love. And so I am very, very proud to stand with my friend, the gentleman from Texas, to say that there's an urgency to restoring this republic. We stand up, speaking of the flag, and pledge allegiance to the flag, and we say, to the republic for which it stands. Most people, I would guarantee you, don't know what a republic is. But I'm going to school you really quickly here. A republic is a place where the individual citizen is supreme, is sovereign, and their views represented by the people they elect are supreme and sovereign. And I ask you, in a country where some agency, where nobody was elected, there's no accountability that says you're not going to be able to drive the car you choose. You're not going to be able to buy a stove to cook your family meal unless the government approves. Is that a republic? And I would argue that it is not. I would argue that it is not, unfortunately. So I'm proud and I'm happy and I'm gratified to stand here on the People's House, in the People's House, with my good friend from Texas and say that I too understand the urgency, and I too will not accept anymore, and I too will withstand the ire of some of my colleagues here if it means defending the people at home that sent me here to defend them from the tyranny that emanates from this town, this building, and this institution by the uni-party or by the establishment or whatever you want to call them, that feathers their nest with the hard-earned dollars of the people that I represent at home that can't afford their groceries, a new house, a new car to send their kids to school. I'm sick of it, and I'm going to do everything I can with the moments that I have every single time I have a moment so that I don't have to look back and say, I wished I would have. I'm not going to do that. Every single moment of every day where there's fight in me and there's a fight to be had, I'm going to be in it, supporting those folks and defending those folks back home from Pennsylvania's 10th District, and quite honestly and quite literally across the great United States of America. And with that, I yield to the gentleman from Texas, and I'll stand by.
I thank my friend from Pennsylvania, and again, I want to reiterate on this eve of Flag Day my appreciation for his service to this country, wearing the uniform and as in Congress. He understands what citizenship means, and I'm deeply appreciative of him for it. I'm deeply appreciative of his friendship. I'm deeply appreciative of the friendships I have here in this Congress, of my colleagues that I'm proud to serve with across the spectrum, but particularly those colleagues who are willing to stand in the fire when it's needed. We don't have much time left, ladies and gentlemen. I don't say that lightly. You cannot look at this country with objective, clear eyes and believe that we're on the right path. We're not. And we're so far off the right path, it is going to take a massive course correction and trajectory change to save this great republic for our kids and grandkids. That is not hyperbole. Our children and grandchildren are on the precipice, inheriting now, booked, as I said before, $36 trillion of debt guaranteed, give or take a few billion, in January of 2025. And I'm just going to be honest. To be lectured by some of my colleagues this morning, to be lectured about my motivations for why I'm here on the floor of the House and standing up and speaking right now, and for it to be alleged that it is for clicks or for money. The only thing that would have made it more of ironic is if that meeting had occurred at the NRCC. The fact is, it is our job right now to stand up and defend the country and not wait for some time in the future. I don't want to hear another thing about, well, we'll do it when. We'll do it when we have the Senate. We'll do it when we have 60 in the Senate. We'll do it when we have a bigger majority. We'll do it when we have someone in the White House. Why don't we do it right now? Right now. Let's have these debates. Let's have these fights out on the floor of the House. Right now. Because I can promise you, the debt deal that we just passed ain't going to get the job done. It's not. And everybody here knows it. Yet they're going to go out and sell it as if it's something that it isn't. They say, well, that's water under the bridge. Well, that is a hell of a lot of water under the bridge. $4 trillion worth of water under that bridge. And now we got to get to work to pass appropriations bills. Will those appropriations bills turn the trajectory of this country away from the iceberg? That is my question for my colleagues. We should appropriate to the FY22 levels that we've been talking about since last December, that we told the American people we were going to do. We should appropriate the federal bureaucracy back to pre-COVID levels, because nobody in America thinks that we should continue to spend at post-COVID levels. I'm going to stand on that. I'm going to keep fighting for that. I believe the American people want us to do that. I believe they want the bureaucracy to be shrinked. I believe they want their country back. I believe they want their lives back. I believe they don't want any more bureaucrats interfering with their freedoms. And I think we should stand united, yes, united in defense of the American people, in fighting for their freedom. That's what I believe we should do. Does my friend from Pennsylvania have anything else he wishes to add?
Well, as you know, I'm in the same position as you with the bill, and we never thought. Look, we got together. This House, Republicans stood united, passed the Limit, Save, Grow bill, stood united, and it was supposed to get us in the room. And we knew it wasn't going to be perfect. We always knew that. We never expected to get everything we wanted. We understand that President Biden didn't want any of it. We understood that Chuck Schumer couldn't pass any bills over there, but wasn't going to agree with anything of it. But we thought we would get something from it. Something. It was $1.5 trillion for a date certain, a number certain for said policy. We lost on both ends of the deal. $4 trillion unended, uncapped spending, and none of the policies. The REINS Act to stop the unbridled regulatory state. That's not there. Work requirements that were actually save us money, not saving us money. Rescissions, where we took money and sent it back to the Treasury. Didn't happen. We rescinded it, but we're going to spend it. That's not saving money. I would yield to the gentleman from Texas.
Well, I think my friend from Pennsylvania, I'm going to close with this. An opinion in the United States District Court for the Northern District of Texas, Fort Worth Division. Defendants, illegal aliens, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to transport and harbor illegal aliens. The sentencing information shows that on behalf of the Juarez cartel, defendants participated in an alien smuggling conspiracy. Their participation included operating an illegal alien stash house in Fort Worth, Texas, and transporting those who had been smuggled into the United States to their desired destination upon full payment. The smuggling organization charged $10,000 to smuggle an adult illegal alien into the United States and between $12,000 to $14,000 to smuggle a child illegal alien. I want to stop there. More money to smuggle a child illegal alien. Law enforcement discovered the Fort Worth portion of this smuggling operation after a man in Baltimore, Maryland, the husband, paid the organization to have his wife and 2-year-old daughter smuggled into the United States after they arrived in Mexico from Honduras. The husband contends that he paid the smuggling organization $1,000 to smuggle his wife and his child into the United States. They were then transported to the stash house in Fort Worth, where the husband contends a member of the smuggling organization demanded he pay an additional $23,000 before his family would be released. The member also told the husband, quote, they would do things to his daughter he would not like, end quote, if he did not make the payment. It goes on to describe the absurdities of cartels in active engagement in this republic, in this country, and we are doing nothing about it. He closes out, the judge, the guidelines, the sentencing guidelines, do not adequately take into account these facts when recommending an appropriate prison range. The current prison guidelines calculation of 51 to 63 months fails to meet the requirement that any sentence provide adequate deterrence and just punishment. Accordingly, the parties are provided notice that the court intends to vary upward from the applicable guidelines range so that they may address this at the time of sentencing. My point is, a federal judge is having to step in to do the work that we are supposed to do here, to stand up and defend this country, not just for ourselves, but for the people being abused in our name. These are human beings. Texans are getting absolutely ravaged in South Texas, ranches getting overrun, people dying from fentanyl, and here, migrants getting abused in the false name of compassion. Literally, thousands of dollars to pay to get out from a stash house. As we head into Flag Day tomorrow, and we think about what that flag represents for people around the world seeking to come here, is that what it is? Is it to be in a stash house where a little girl is being threatened? And why won't we do anything about it? And why should we appropriate money to a Department of Homeland Security that refuses to secure the homeland? We have a job. We have a job to represent the people of the United States and to actually do what we're supposed to do to defend the United States and ensure that we have a sovereign nation. We should think about that tomorrow as we head into Flag Day. While the White House flouts the United States flag, we should honor it. We should honor it right here. And we should honor it remembering that the flag consists of 13 horizontal stripes, 7 red alternating with 6 white. We know that the stripes represent the original 13 colonies and the stars, the 50 states of the Union. A lot of people don't know, though, that the colors of the flag are symbolic as well. Red symbolizes hardiness and valor. White symbolizes purity and innocence. And blue represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. Are we going to stand up for those tomorrow? Are we going to stand up those for the rest of this Congress? Or are we going to continue to punt for some future date when everything magically works out politically so that you can finally stand up and do what you know is right today? I yield back.